effect, and effect. Effect. Affect is a verb. To affect someone or something means to cause them to change, often in a negative way. For instance, there are many ways in which computers can affect our lives. The disease affected her lungs. Effect. Effect is usually a noun. An effect is something that happens or exists because something else has happened. For instance, the report shows the effect of noise on people in the factories. This has the effect of separating students from teachers. You can say that something has a particular effect on something else. Improvement in water supply can have a dramatic effect on health. These changes will have a significant effect on our business. Effect is sometimes a verb. If you affect something that you are trying to achieve, you succeed in achieving it. This is a formal use. The new law will give us the power to effect change. Accept and accept. Accept is a verb. If someone offers you something and you accept it, you agree to take it. For instance, Jane accepted a slice of cake. If you accept someone's advice or suggestion, you decide to do what they advise or suggest. I knew that they would accept my proposal. If you accept a difficult or unpleasant situation, you recognize that it cannot be changed. They refused to accept poor working conditions. Accept. Accept is a preposition or conjunction. You use accept to introduce the only thing, person, or group that your main statement does not apply to. You usually use accept in front of a noun phrase. For instance, anything except water is likely to block a sink. All the boys except Peter started to laugh. You can use except in front of object pronouns such as me, him, or her, or in front of reflexive pronouns such as himself or herself. There's nobody except me. Pedro did not trust anyone except himself. You can use except in front of a to infinitive. I never wanted anything except to be a teacher. She seldom goes out except to go to church. After do, you can use except in front of an infinitive without to. There was little I could do except wait. You can use except in front of a finite. You can use except in front of finite, in front of a finite, in front of a finite, but only when the clause is introduced by when, while, where, what, or that. I knew nothing about Judith except what her dad told me. We can use except for in front of a noun phrase when we are mentioning something that prevents a statement from being completely true. For instance, the classroom was silent except for the sound of pens on paper. The room was very cold and except for Mauer, entirely empty. Actual and current. Actual. You use actual to emphasize that the place, object, or person you are talking about is the real or genuine one. For instance, the predicted results and the actual results are very different. The actual cost was higher than we expected. You do not use actual to describe something that is happening, being done, or being used at the present time. Instead, you use current or present. For instance, the store needs money to survive the current crisis. Is the present situation really any different from many others in the past? Accuse and charge. Accuse. If you accuse someone of doing something wrong, you say that they did it. For example, he accused them of drinking beer while driving. He is accused of killing 10 young women. Charge. When the police charge someone with committing a crime, they formally accuse them of it. For example, he was arrested and charged with committing a variety of offenses. That's a serious charge with grave consequences. Breathe and breath. I do. So, breathe. Breathe is a verb. When people or animals breathe, they take air into their lungs and let it out again. For example, it was difficult for him to breathe. Always breathe through your nose. The second one, breath. Breath is a noun. Your breath is the air that you take into your lungs and let out again when you breathe. For instance, she took a deep breath, then started to explain. I could smell the coffee on his breath. Habit and custom. What is the difference? Habit. A habit is something that a person does often or regularly. For instance, he had an worse habit of biting his nails. Try to get out of the habit of adding unnecessary salt in cooking. The second one is custom. A custom is something that people in a society do at a particular time of year or in a particular situation. For instance, it is the custom to take chocolates or fruit when visiting a patient in hospital. My wife likes all the old English customs. You can use called or named when you are giving the name of someone or something. Named is less common than called and is not usually used in conversation. For instance, did you know a boy called Dragon? We passed through a town called Booby Trap. A man named Pattison confessed to the theft. You can use called either after a noun or after be. For instance, she starred in a play called Cube. The book was called You usually use named immediately after a noun. The victim was an 18-year-old girl named Shackle. Lucky and happy. Lucky. You say that someone is lucky when something nice happens to them, or when they always seem to have good luck. For instance, you're a lucky girl to have so many friends. The lucky winners were given $5,000 each. Happy. Don't use lucky to say that someone has feelings of pleasure and contentment. The word you use is happy. For example, Sarah's such a happy person. She's always laughing. Barbara felt tremendously happy when she heard the news. Indicate and show. You can use indicate and show in a similar way when you are talking about evidence or the results of research. For instance, evidence indicates that the experiments were unsuccessful. Research shows that doctors are working harder. If you show an object to someone, you hold it up or give or take it to them so that they can look at it. When show has this meaning, it always takes an indirect object. You can say show someone something or show something to someone. For instance, I showed Helen what I had in my ear. Show your tongue to the teacher. Indicate is not usually used with this meaning. Indoors and indoor. What is the difference? Indoors. Indoors is an adverb. If you go indoors, you go into a building. For instance, it started tsunami, so we went indoors. If something happens indoors, it happens inside a building. The adults were playing indoors. Indoor. Indoor is an adjective used in front of a noun. You use it to describe objects or activities that exist or happened inside a building. Happen. Let's do it again. Oh my God. Indoor is an adjective used in front of a noun. You use it to describe objects or activities that exist or happen inside a building. For instance, the hotel has an indoor helipad. We'll think of some indoor games to play if it's wet. Industrious and industrial. Let's find out about these words more. So, industrious. An industrious person works very hard. He was industrious and always trying to improve himself. Michael was an intelligent, industrious man. How interesting. So, the second one is industrial. Don't use industrious to describe things related to making goods in factories. Use industrial. Do you understand? Only industrial. For instance, they have increased their industrial production in recent years. The company is located in an industrial zone to the east of the city. Homework and housework. Let's find out what is interesting about these two words. Okay, the first one is homework. Homework is a work that school pupils are given to do at home. You say that pupils do homework. Don't say that they make homework. This is wrong. Have you done your English homework? The second one is housework. Housework is work such as cleaning or washing that is done in a house. For instance, she relied on him to do most of the housework. How interesting. Be careful. Yes. Be careful. Both homework and housework are uncountable nouns. Don't talk about a homework or houseworks. Magazine and shop. I remember when I started learning English, for me it was a little bit tricky to choose between these two words. So let's find out more about them. Magazine. A magazine is a collection of articles, photographs, and advertisements published every week or every month. For instance, her face was on the cover of every magazine. Tanya read a magazine while she waited. The second one is shop. Don't use magazine to refer to a building or part of a building where things are sold. The word you use is shop or store. For instance, There's a row of shops on the high street. There's a little gift shop around the corner. Loose is an adjective. It means not firmly fixed or not tight. For example, the handle is loose. Mary wore loose clothes. The second word is lose. Lose is a verb. If you lose something, you no longer have it or you cannot find it. For example, I don't want to lose my job. If you lose your credit card, let the company know immediately. Receipt and recipe. A receipt is a piece of paper that confirms that money or goods have been received. For instance, we've got receipts for each thing we've bought. The second one is recipe. Don't use receipt to refer to a set of instructions telling you how to cook something. The word you use is recipe. For instance, this is an old Polish recipe for beetroot soup. Recognize and realize. Recognize. If you recognize someone or something, you know who or what they are because you have seen them before or because they have been described to you. For instance, she didn't recognize me at first. Doctors are trained to recognize the symptoms of depression. If you recognize something such as a problem, you accept that it exists. You accept that it exists. For instance, governments are beginning to recognize the problem. We recognize this as a genuine need. The second word is realize. If you become aware of a fact, don't say that you recognize it. You say that you realize it. Did you get it? Realize. For instance, I realized Martha was right. She realized that she was going to be late. Remain and stay. Remain and stay are often used with the same meaning. Remain is more formal than stay. To remain or stay in a particular state means to continue to be in that state. For example, Oliver remained silent. I stayed awake all night. If you remain or stay in a place, you don't leave it. For instance, I was allowed to remain at home. Fewer women these days stay at home to look after their children. If something still exists, you can say that it remains. Don't say that it stays. For instance, even today, parts of the old wall remain. The wider problem remains. The wider problem remains. If you stay in a town, hotel or house, you live there for a short time. For example, how long can you stay in Brussels? She was staying in the same hotel as I was. Remove and move. Remove. If you remove something, you take it away. The waiter came over to remove the plates. He removed his hand from the man's collar. Move. If you go to live in a different house, don't say that you remove. Say that you move. For instance, send me your new address if you move. Last year, my parents moved from Marseille to Paris. In British English, you can also say that you move house. We have just moved house and are planning to paint some of the rooms. Require. If you require something, you need it or want it. For instance, is there anything you require? We cannot guarantee that any particular item will be available when you require it. Require is a formal word. You do not usually use it in conversation or in less formal writing. Instead, you use need or want. I won't need that book anymore. All they want is a holiday. If something is required, it must be obtained so that something else can be done. Parliamentary approval would be required for any scheme. An increase in funds may be required. If you are required to do something, you must do it. For example, because of a rule or law, all the boys were required to study religion. Result, effect. A result of something is an event or situation that happens or exists because of it. The result of the announcement was that the share price of the company rose by 10%. I nearly missed the flight as a result of getting stuck in traffic. I cut my own hair, often with disastrous results. Effect. When something produces a change in a thing or person, don't refer to this change as a result on the thing or person. The word you use is effect. Diet has a significant effect on your health. Scissors. Scissors are a small tool consisting of two sharp blades joined together, used for cutting things such as paper, cloth, or hair. Scissors is a plural noun. Don't talk about a scissors. Instead say some scissors or a pair of scissors. I need some scissors to get this label off. She took a pair of scissors and cut his hair. Sensible and sensitive. Sensible. A sensible person makes good decisions and judgments based on reason rather than emotion. She was a sensible girl and did not panic. Sensitive. Sensitive has two meanings. A sensitive person is easily upset or offended by other people's remarks or behavior. He is quite sensitive about his weight. A sensitive child can get very upset by people arguing. If someone is sensitive, they show awareness and understanding of other people's feelings. It would not be very sensitive to ask him about his divorce. It would not very sensitive to ask him about his divorce. His experiences helped him become less selfish and more sensitive. Sheep and lamb. A sheep is a farm animal with a thick woolly coat. The plural of sheep is sheep. The farmer has 600 sheep. A flock of sheep was grazing on the hill. Lamb. A lamb is a young sheep. The field was full of little lambs. The meat of a young sheep is called lamb. When it is used with this meaning, lamb is an uncountable noun. For dinner, we had lamb and potatoes. The meat of an adult sheep is called mutton, but this meat is less common in Britain and America than lamb. Don't use sheep to refer to the meat of a sheep. Sometimes and sometime. Sometimes. You use sometimes to say that something happens on some occasions, rather than all the time. The bus was sometimes completely full. Sometimes I wish I was back in Africa. Sometime. Don't confuse sometimes with sometime. Sometime means at a time in the past or future that is unknown or has not yet been decided. Can I come and see you sometime? Sometime is often written as some time. He died sometime last year. Stationery and stationery. Stationery and stationery are both pronounced stationery. However, their meanings are completely different. Stationery is an adjective. If a vehicle is stationary, it is not moving. There were a stationary car in the middle of the street. Only use the handbrake when your vehicle is stationary. Stationery is a noun. It refers to paper, envelopes, pens, and other equipment used for writing. They sell books and stationery. Get some envelopes from the office stationery cupboard. Strange and unusual. Strange. You use strange to say that something is unfamiliar or unexpected in a way that makes you puzzled, uneasy, or afraid. The strange thing was that she didn't remember anything about the evening. It was strange to hear her voice again. Usual. Oh no, unusual. Yes, unusual. If you just want to say that something is not common, you use unusual, not strange. He had an unusual name. It is unusual for such a small hotel to have a restaurant. Sweets and candy. In British English, small sweet things that you eat, such as toffees and chocolates, are called sweets. She did not allow her children to eat too many sweets. In American English, sweet things like these are called candy. Candy is an uncountable noun. You eat too much candy, it's bad for your teeth. Take place. You say that an event takes place. The wedding took place on the stage of the Sunday Opera House, Sydney. Of the Sydney Opera House. Elections will take place in November. Happened and occur have a similar meaning, but they can only be used for talking about events which were not planned. You can use take place to take about either planned or unplanned events. The talks will take place in Vienna. The accident took place on Saturday morning. But be careful, take place is an intransitive verb. Don't say that something was taken place. Title and headline. Title. The title of a book, play, painting, or piece of music is its name. He wrote a book with the title The Castle. Walk Under Ladders is the title of your new play. Headline. Don't refer to the words printed in large letters at the top of a newspaper report as a title. You call them a headline. All the headlines are about the Radley affair. All the headlines are about the Radley affair. True and come true. A true story or statement is based on facts and is not invented or imagined. The story about the murder is true. Unfortunately, it was true about Sylvie. Come true. If a dream, wish, or prediction comes true, it actually happens. Remember that some dreams come true. The worst of the predictions might come true. But be careful, don't say that something comes true. That's all. Bye-bye.